Okay, I think we're at that point in time where we're getting ready to start the live feed. Tonight we'll have Rachel and Colleen doing American Sign Language for the deaf, and that's a capability we like to have. We don't always get so lucky, so thanks so much. My name is Cal Casey, Information Officer for the Alaska Interagency Incident Management Team. We're the Type 2 team under the leadership of Incident Commander Norm McDonald, who's a 30-year firefighter and local of Alaska, and Tom Kurth, who is also considered the Deputy Incident Commander. They share a similar title. Tom just retired as the Fire and Aviation Director for the state of Alaska, and Norm is now the Fire and Aviation Director for the state of Alaska. And on behalf of our incident management team and on the Department of Forestry, we'd like to welcome you to our second committee meeting here at the wonderful school. We thank, again, Rachel and Colleen, so we're going to keep the speakers sort of in this area here so we can keep the sign going. And then we want to thank Janine and the school again for all their technical help. We do have the laser pointing here, which is great. So you have your agenda. I'm going to go ahead and just on behalf of all of us, we've received just an enormous amount of support during this difficult time for our fire crews. We've had an enormous outreach from the community, coming by the Willow Community Center, looking to find ways that you can be part of the solution and help everybody get through this together. And as people trickle in, I'll keep talking about that a bit so they can get set up here before we introduce Karen Scholl, because our first speaker is going to go right into some drone overhead footage of all the themes of the fire that we've been talking about for the past several days on all of our live feeds and updates, which include the challenges that the firefighters are having on the ground with the very deep and dry conditions of the burn and the trees falling over and all the challenges. You'll see in just a short minute here, about a minute and 20-second drone clip that was shot today by our drone operator, which gives a very much of a, I'm a visual learner, which is why I do so many live feeds, because I think people like me like to see things rather than just read them. And so we rely on that heavily on our team, and we hope it's been serving you well. And then again, I think we're at that point where we can introduce Karen Scholl. So Karen is our operations chief. She lives in Fairbanks, Alaska in the summer, and she's going to give us the overview of what our plan is out there. And then, oh, hey, thank you. Okay, so these two are going to help discipline us speakers to keep in the center. And Karen?
All right, good afternoon. I'll step aside so you can see this video. We'll take a look at it and then talk about it a bit. So what you're seeing is some burned area on the fire. Got a lot of blowdown, so that's what you're seeing here in the center. We do have some hose out and some saves on the left. But what our big challenge is the blowdown right now. Another save here. Got some hardwoods. The hardwoods tend to stand up a little bit longer. They are able to take a little bit more heat before they tip over. But with the expected winds, if there's a burn underneath the ground or underneath the trees, with the winds, we'll see those tipping over also. This is just a small snapshot of what we have going on. That's structure loss, and you can see how the intensity here is a lot hotter. It burned a lot hotter here than in some other areas. So that's kind of what we call mosaic. So it's not all just deep black burn. But nonetheless, the fuels below the trees have been burned and weakened the root structure, which is not very deep to begin with because of the tundra and the fact that we're sitting over ice in most of this area. So that's the challenge that we're having as firefighters out there, and that's why we're going to be in your backyards and in your neighborhoods for a long time. It's going to be a big, hard, concerted effort, and it takes a very, let's say, concerted effort, and starting on one end and moving straight through all the way to the other end in order to make sure that we're getting all the embers and all the hot spots out of there. So the blowdown, what that requires is folks to go in You know, we got that gym jam and the trees are crossed on each other. We have to have fallers who are qualified to assess trees, to take a look at them, and kind of determine how best to cut them in order to do it safely, and then be able to cut those trees out. And then we have to deal with the wood that now is on the ground, and the fact that there's still heat underneath there potentially. So we have to have a piece of ground, a large piece of ground that is clear of all hot spots. We cut the trees, we move them, we stack them, and then we're able to go find the heat that's under the trees that we had just cut. So it's a very big, very difficult endeavor that we're getting into here. We're not even in this phase of the fire yet. That's the next phase after we get around it. So where are we now? So with the crews that we've had, we've been able to just try and piece together and go after specific areas that exhibit a lot of heat and try and take care of those little pockets to keep the fire from expanding. Typically, we want to start at the heel, which is where the fire started, and typically we would just go down each flank with a bunch of crews and dozers and work our way towards the head in one good continuous effort, and that would happen on both sides of the fire. But we were not able to do that on this fire, so we've got little pockets of places where we have hose and line in, and we're trying to join that up with other pockets of hose and line, and that's just because of the lack of crews that we had initially. We're starting to get them now, but it's taken us a while to get the crews in. We were able to get dozers into some places, but then you get a waterway and you can't cross there with a dozer, so then you have to try and insert a crew there. And so we started down here and worked our way across. We were able to get dozers across the train tracks, and now they're working up this way. So they're trying to tie pieces together and try and get around this whole thing. So it's just a big effort. And then on top of that, we've got all the homes and structures that are within the fire perimeter that we keep having to patrol and to respond to, all these little flare-ups. And even just a small little flare-up or just smoke around those structures, that's a concern for us because we don't want to walk away from that and then have a structure burn down after the fact that's already been saved. So our engines are working diligently in the neighborhoods and just responding where they can, but what that means is we can't make a real good effort just from top to bottom, trying to sweep all those hot spots out of there. Right now, we're just still responding. So that's what we're trying to do now is we're getting more crews in, and so we'll be able to just have a better focus on the fire line, on the fire's edge, and try and get around it a little bit more systematically. That's the word I've been searching for, systematically. So we have had a great cooperation with the local resources. We've been using a lot of those local resources. They keep coming back and keep coming back, even though they have day jobs. It's a big burden, and we really appreciate the help and wouldn't be where we are right now without them. So when you see your local resources out there, please thank them for their efforts and giving up their day jobs to come help the effort. We are starting to get some relief engines in from all other places across the state and outside. We're getting crews in here as well. So currently on the fire, we've got 10 crews, 5 of them Alaskan crews, and then the other 5 from down south. We're expecting another 5 or so to come up in the next couple of days. We've got 20 engines. That includes about 12 of the cooperator engines. We've got 8 dozers, about 8 water tenders, a bunch of overhead from lower 48 as well as in-state. And then we've got, on the aircraft side, we have 4 dedicated medium-sized helicopters, 1 light helicopter, 2 Blackhawks were available to use, and those are dedicated to us. Blackhawks are shared. We've got 4 scoopers in the state, so the CL-215s, water scooping aircraft. We've got 2 retardant tankers and 2 fire bosses at our disposal also. So we're well prepared now, and what we're trying to do for tomorrow's or tonight's semi-wind event is to make sure that the vulnerable places on our line are reinforced with retardant so that we don't get some kind of escape that we're not anticipating. So we are running retardant kind of in this area where we don't have crews and we don't have line. And we've been hitting this area with buckets. And so we're just trying to really reinforce and slow things down and keep it cool while we get through this wind event. Chris Moore will talk about alignment and how things are looking, and Julie will talk about the forecast, but right now things are looking pretty good, but I'm not going to say we have it wrapped up yet. So that's what I've got for you guys. I guess we'll do probably questions after the fact.
We'll hold the questions to the end, and then so Julia Withrick's next. She's an incident meteorologist out of Anchorage, Alaska, very talented, and anytime we can get ahead of the messaging, we go direct to you online. So last night, Julia was brave enough to do a 14-minute live feed. You can come on in here now. And I'm not sure if many of you watched it, but certainly thousands did. And what Julia did was go into the details she's about to now. But if we can get ahead of that and do that before a community meeting when we're about to expect something 24, 48 hours out, that's our plan. So Julia's going to repeat with more detail what she said last night.
Good evening. Julia Ruthford. I'm the incident meteorologist on the fire, and so what I do here is do fire weather forecasting specifically for the fire area. So what I'm going to speak about is the weather change that we've got going on right now and what's coming over the next couple of days. We have a frontal system, weak upper level trough that's up over interior Alaska right now. That system sweeping down from the northwest at the moment. We've had some warm air, unstable conditions out ahead of it, so the little showers you've seen building up over the mountains, over the terrain around the area, those have been popping up in response to that and the warm temperatures that we got today. So far, all those showers, as they've drifted off the mountains and come closer to the fire, they've all pretty much dissipated and fallen apart. Would expect we'll see that continuing to happen. If any did get over here, we'd only be looking at a really light bit of rain out of them and just a spot in one location, so nothing widespread expected out of them. But as we go into the evening hours, those showers will get flatter, spread out, and that's going to increase the cloud cover. Additionally, the upper trough that's to the northwest, that's coming across the Alaska range right now, that's going to push some additional clouds into the area as well. So we'll see those clouds increasing through the evening. Now the other part of this trough is as it pushes in, it's going to bring some northeast winds back to the area. This is a much, much weaker event than what we saw last weekend. It's still significant because of the direction and because there will be some breezy conditions, but the wind speeds are going to be a whole lot lower, it's going to be cooler, and the humidities are going to be higher as that comes in. So I would expect in the next few hours to see those winds shift around to the north-northeast direction through the evening, through about midnight. Initially, they're going to only increase to about 5 miles an hour. Then as we get after midnight, midnight to 4 a.m., they're going to come up to about 10 miles an hour. And then they'll be their strongest right around 6 a.m. in the morning. And at that point, we're looking for sustained winds around 10 miles an hour and get some gusts to 15. That is significant for all the trees that have their roots weakened and everything, that much wind, but again, this is a whole lot less wind than the previous event. That was gusting 25 to 30 miles an hour, and it lasted for about 48 hours, that entire event, and was much, much more widespread. In this case, these are just the northeast winds that come out Broad Pass and they come down the Susitna Valley, and where the McKinley fire is located is pretty much at the northern extent to where the winds are going to be. The further north up the valley you get, the winds will be a little breezier up towards Talkeetna, and then as you get up into the pass, as you go further south, the winds are going to get lighter. So that's why we're expecting as they come through here, will be breezy but not all that strong in that 10 to 15 mile an hour range. Peak time for those would be about 6 a.m. And then in that 10 to 15 mile an hour range, lasting through mid-morning. By midday on Saturday, we'll see those winds diminishing. But the other thing those winds are going to bring is some drier conditions. So we'll see the clouds tonight, possibility of light sprinkles, but as those northeast winds start blowing a little bit, they're going to break the clouds back up. So we'll see partly cloudy skies tomorrow and then becoming mostly sunny. So by afternoon, we're looking at back to warm and dry conditions, highs up in the upper 60s, and the relative humidity is falling to about 30% or so. However, in this instance, the last event, all of the critical conditions happened at the same time. The warm temperatures, the really low humidities, and the really strong winds. In this case, the winds are going to happen during the night and proceed ahead of when the hot temperatures happen. So the fact that the event is staggered, the winds coming in, then diminishing, then it getting warm and dry is pretty significant that it's not all aligned. So individually, they're all elements we need to pay attention to from a fire weather perspective, but it's really lining up to be a much, much more moderate, lower end event than what we saw last time. Following that event, following Saturday, as we move into Sunday, there's another weak trough coming in from the west that's going to bring some more clouds to the area. In this case, that system, however, is going to bring southerly winds with it, and that's favorable because it'll bring up some more moisture from Cook Inlet. Not enough that we're really expecting much rain out of it, just some scattered showers around the area, but we will see more clouds coming in, and our humidity is quite a bit moister on Saturday. So cool conditions, highs only up into the low 60s, and those humidities, the 40 to 45% range. So cool, moisture, and that favorable southerly wind for that moisture. Our long term, unfortunately, still looks overall to be warm and dry. By Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, a ridge builds back into the area. So, you know, under other circumstances, it would be bringing some beautiful fall weather. Sunny skies, generally dry days, cold nights, just kind of that cool, crisp fall air. Not much wind with it, but it does look like that our ongoing, you know, long-term period without much rain is going to persist at least through next week.
Thank you, Julia. And Chris Moore is the man who puts it all together. So he looks at the science of it all, has a vast background in it, and he's what we call our FBAN, or Fire Behavior Analyst.
Right, so fire behavior burns by three components: the fuels, the weather, and the topography. We have Julia, or another IMET, who takes care of the weather part, because that's the most complicated part to figure out. Where the fire is relatively flat, so terrain is not that big of a player. The other thing is the fuels, right? They're extremely dry. Everyone who's in the area knows that we haven't had rain in a long time. And what we really pay attention to is the dryness of the surface of the fuels and then going down. The deeper you go, normally you get to some point where it's damp and the fuels are not so dry, but it hasn't rained in so long and it's been such a dry summer that those fuels are dry down to like 8 inches. So trying to put the fire out is quite a chore. So like Julia said, we have this moderate risk coming. We have some higher winds overnight, but they're not occurring during the peak burn period, so that is a good thing, but we do have some moderate risk. Once that passes, we're gonna go back to the same pattern. We have those extremely dry fuels, we have warm temperatures, dry relative humidities, and light winds. So we'll see similar fire behavior to what we've seen the last couple of days. We have those big giant jackpots that Karen talked about, the trees that have burned, already fire weakened, and then the green trees are normally more stable, but at this point that duff layer is so dry that a lot of places it's burned completely away, not giving any stability to the trees. So those trees are falling over as well, and like Karen said, they're falling on hot fuels, and then eventually they'll start to flare up, they'll torch out some trees, and they'll cause a big show, pretty much, if you will. But it's mostly interior. If it's around someone's house, then it's a serious thing. If it's interior in the black, it's not so serious. But that's what we're looking at right now, is that once we pass through this wind event, I think we're, like I said, at a moderate risk for some fire spread, but not at a high risk because the winds are not occurring in the afternoon. And then we're going to go back to this period of warm, dry with light wind. So without rain being forecast in the near future, that means the mop up, you know, the digging around in the dirt, trying to put all the embers out is going to be a long, arduous task for the people on the ground.
Okay. Great, thanks, Chris. And with those two speakers, that's what led to the change in evacuation levels today between milepost 81.5 and 79 that went to the set, the yellow, and afterwards there's a big blow-up map of the evacuation levels on the side wall back there on the right of the gym. And then 79 to 76 went to a ready, the level 1. So we also forecast or foreshadowed that last night. So if we can get ahead again and give you an idea of where things are going, we do. And Lieutenant Fussy and his Alaska State Patrol were in those neighborhoods today, and he said that everyone, all the homeowners he talked to already were on a level 2 in their minds and had prepared to have that plan to move as needed. And that just goes to show that obviously our neighbors here are ready, and we should all be in that ready place. Next we have a very hardworking man, our Emergency Services Director, Ken Barkley, who is We've been trying to follow him around all his meetings and everything he's had the burden of doing today, and we welcome him. Cam, thanks for being part of the team.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I guess I'll start off with today was a real hard day for those at the McKinley fire. We notified the residents that the ones that have lost their homes were notified today. I've been doing this for a very long time. It was probably one of the hardest things we had to do. Special thanks to the team that helped us do that. The other part of that was we had to do it in 2 locations at the same time. Very difficult because separating our teams, but we had to do that because of the road traffic getting through, so we didn't want anybody held up in that if we made it on the south side. So we did it at both locations. So I just wanted to, our hearts are out to those people, and just respect their privacy is what we're asking, and then we'll assist them as we can. Part of that is that the governor signed the declaration today. We just found out maybe an hour ago or so. What that does, it opens up a different funding stream. And what that's going to do for those at the McKinley fire is it's going to help them with food, clothing, shelter. That does not help rebuild their homes. That we're still working on. That's the next step. So I just don't want that to get misconstrued in there. So understand that this will help with shelter through the winter, food, clothing, and stuff like that. So that's a huge step for us. And then we're going to continue on with the federal side of this, and we're going to keep pressing forward. As soon as we get word of that, we will let you know. The other part of what I've been asked to speak about today is it was brought up one of the meetings today about helping out with getting rid of all the debris. So George Hayes, Deputy Manager, was on the phone with me, and he's working on that right now. They do have a plan for the Willow dump site for the wood, but not the metal. So that's what they're working on right now, and I'm hoping early of next week we'll have the site set up for wood, metals, and any other items from your houses. Once you start wanting that removed, we will have sites set up. So we're actively looking at that. We're working at what land the borough owns that we can open up. The problem is we can't just open up an area and say, okay, everything dumps there, because we're going to get everything and anything. So we have to have it systemized where certain items can go here, contaminants can go here, hazardous materials can go in another area. So that's what we're trying to figure out right now. And some of our Terry Dolan is working with working on that project for us to make sure we can get all the items you need taken care of, and that's one less thing you'll have to worry about. So I can assure you, as soon as we have it figured out where we can do this, we will let you know. Thank you.
And again, we'll have questions at the end. Next up, Incident Commander Norm McDonald with Incident Commander comments.
Morning. Just real quick, how many folks were here at the first meeting we did? Okay, about half. So I'm just going to go over a couple things just so you kind of know what our team's about. Get in the right spot here. So we're bringing with us a group of people. Karen talked about the operations side of it. We have public information. Right now we have about 380 firefighters on this incident. So that takes a lot of support. We have a logistics section that takes care of the feeding, the housing, where they're going to sleep, working with the campground they're staying at to make sure they have food and the facilities they need to come back to, get refurbished, get refreshed, get the tools they need, and go back out to work the next day. So that's a huge part of our job. We have a finance section. A lot of this is going to go through a FEMA recovery of some sort, an FMAG is what we call it, or through the state. So there's a lot of tracking of just the finance end of it. So we have a big section there that's taking care of the contracts. We have dozers that we bring in that are private, boats that are private, and working out that whole process to pay those folks. And then the other part of that we have is the liaison section. And it's a one-person show right now, but that just shows the work we're doing with our cooperators. And right now we have the state troopers, National Guard, Red Cross, MEA, MTA, the utility companies, the borough folks, both the response and the recovery side. So there's a big part of what we're doing besides putting out the fire is what we need to do as a group to get this area as back to normal as we can, as soon as we can. So the part we're working on with the troopers and the Guard and DOT and the railroad is getting those corridors open. I know a lot of you want to know about that. So I think we're very close to getting that back to somewhat of a normal traffic flow, two-way traffic. We want to wait till we get through Saturday with the wind predicted for tonight and tomorrow. And if everything goes well there, we should be really close to getting the two-way traffic up. It'll include some restrictions as far as slower speeds, but that would really be a step in the right direction as far as getting things back as far as that transportation corridor. We were able to get the railroad up and going really quickly. Within 2 days, they were back to an almost purely normal schedule, so that's on track. And we'll continue to work with those guys as any hazards or trees fall we need to address. The other part of that is just the re-entry of the people who are evacuated, and that's something we're thinking about every day. I know we keep track of the days. The first group went out Saturday. We're looking at Friday and another wind event tomorrow. So some of these folks are going to have been out longer than a week already, and we think about that every day. We discuss it every day, and one of my priorities is get people back in there as soon as we can. So again, we have this wind event tonight, and then tomorrow. That's going to be the first hump for us to get through before we can look at that re-entry process. Karen showed you the video with all the downed trees. What we need to do to make that safe around those residences is any of those trees that are down and they have heat under them have a potential to flare back up again. And if they're near a house and we let people back in, that's just something that we're going to have to deal with, or they're going to have to be aware of. So we need to secure those homes within the perimeter, secure the actual perimeter of the fire, and when we open that back up to people, and it will be in the near future, it's going to be very clear it's still not a 100% safe situation. But we look at that as a local resident and Alaskan. I know people want to get back in there, so we're going to work with the residents as they go in there, and I know they'll work with us to make sure, one, we have firefighter safety, public safety, so they know what the hazards are and how to avoid them, and we'll just have those communications. So if we need to continue these meetings, either large scale like this or just small with the neighborhood as they go back in, we'll continue that to try to get that as soon as we can. And I know that's the question that a lot of you want to know, is when you can go back in. So I want you to know from myself, that's in front of my mind as we think about every day, every meeting, we're looking at those time frames, but we're not going to do it until it's safe for you and safe for our firefighters to operate in there. So that's where we are with that. I think, one thing, I was born and raised up here. I've worked in the Valley for my entire career, and this is the one thing I'm always impressed in, is the group of people we work with. So we got a lot of agencies pulling together to get you guys back to a normal life, and it's a tough job, but everybody is working hard. Somebody said Ken's the hardest working guy in the borough, and I get a text from him at 5:30 in the morning and 1 o'clock in the morning as I'm going to bed. So he's working for you to get you back home and make sure it's safe. So I think we'll move on to the next group, but we will have this whole panel up here, myself included, to answer questions. And if you got anything we need to do to help us do our job better, we'll listen to that as well. So appreciate it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Norm. And next up is Paul Bushler. He is the Red Cross Disaster Mental Health Coordinator. And Paul, you're on the mic.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Paul. I'm working with the Red Cross. The Red Cross is currently operating 2 shelters. The Upper Susitna shelter is open and will remain open indefinitely. The Menard Sports Center in Wasilla is also open as a shelter. Currently, we have had over 325 overnight stays. We have served through our feeding partners, Salvation Army and Food Pantry up in Upper Susitna, over 1,375 meals and snacks. We've had over 125 mental health and also health services connections with clients. And we currently have 55 Red Cross workers here and working. We are bringing people in from outside of the state to help out. So Red Cross is here. We're committed to providing warm, hot meals. We're committed for safe places for you folks to stay at, and we will continue to provide for you. So, thank you.
Great, thanks, Paul. And Julie Esty is next. She's with the Matanuska Electric Association, and she's the Public Relations Director.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I watched everybody else do it. So, sorry. Hi, everybody. Julie Esty with Matanuska Electric Association. We have been really focused our efforts on restoration right now. So we have our primary backbone, which is the 3-phase power line that runs right down the Parks Highway. You probably drive by it most days. And we've got that back up and running, and it was actually energized last night. I got a picture about 10:30 of the Sheep Creek Lodge with lights on, and it just made me really happy. So the next part of it is we're doing the side taps, and so the way that works is there's the backbone, and then there's the side taps, usually just the single-phase power that goes to your different communities. So we were able to energize 6 taps with 30 meters today on that, so that's been great. We're basically starting north and working our way south, and what we have to do is really patrol each line very carefully. We want to make sure that, one, our crews are safe and the lines are safe for when folks come back to their homes. And we need to then, once they're up and running, we need to keep them safe. For instance, some of the deadfall that we've been hearing about has just been coming as the wind blows, will come right back into our lines. And so we've got to make repairs and then keep what we've repaired safe. And then after you get to the taps, there's those silver and black lines that kind of twist around and come to your house. That's the secondary lines. And so after we get our backbone and the taps all together, once we can get into the fire area as well, we're going to be looking at those secondary lines that come to your home. And as you all are allowed back into your homes and to your properties, we'll also be there doing our own assessment and making sure that everything is safe from our line to the meter base. When our members are ready to rebuild, when that stage comes, we are there for you to help as well. We are waiving all fees associated with disconnect and reconnect, any secondary lines that come to the existing structure as they used to. There'll be, we're covering all of the costs of making that happen. If you want to rebuild in a different location, then we'll need to do an assessment on that. But if you're going back to the original structure, we cover everything to the meter base. And so our member service rep is going to be ready for you all to connect with us and let us know when you're ready to start that process and expedite that for each and every one of you guys. So we're ready for you, and we're doing what we can. Right now, we've got a crew on patrol 24/7 up here ready to react to anything that comes our way. We also have some clearing crews that have been assigned to the Incident Command to help as we can, and then we've got other clearing crews working to keep our lines safe as well. So that's a little bit about what we're doing. We're keeping everything up to date on our Facebook page, and our member service reps are ready to answer any questions. So if you have questions now, feel free to call us, and we'll happily answer that call and do what we can. We also want people to know that if you see any sort of tree precariously leaning into any line on any part of our system, please give us a call. We've got a danger tree program where we come and take care of that free of charge. If you see any tree touching a line, don't approach it. Call us, or we've got somebody on our dispatch center 24/7. Call 911. Definitely don't approach that tree or try to remove it or be helpful. Anything touching an energized line or the ground beneath it, anything close to it, can be live. So please keep yourself safe out there, and we will be there to respond. I guess I'll just close by saying, we've heard amazing stories from our members of this community coming together, and we're just really proud to be a part of this community and to be serving you, and we're here to help. Thanks.
Thank you, Julie. And if you look at your agenda, we have a couple more items. One is I'll introduce our mayor, Vern Halter, here in just a moment, and then we'll have a Q&A, and then we also want to have a DESHCA fire briefing by Alan Lawson, the Incident Commander, Pacific Northwest Team 10. And we consider ourselves Green Pants Nation. Doesn't matter if you're local, state, federal. Doesn't matter if you're from Washington. How do you say it? Washington? Or Oregon? It doesn't matter where you're from. If you're a firefighter or supporting a fire team, you're part of the Green Pants Nation. So we'll do we'll introduce the mayor, then we'll have our Q&A so we can stay focused on McKinley, and then we'll have the DESHCA. Our mayor, Vern Halter.
Thank you. I'm going to slide back here a little ways. So, well, we're less than a week into this incident. A week ago tonight, everything was fine in the Matsu Borough. Friday night, a week ago. But all hell broke loose on Saturday, as we all know, and MEA, Julie made me promise I wouldn't say about how fire started. It was Mother Nature started these fires. Exactly what happened in every case, because we had high wind events that did topple trees, that did hit power lines and things like that. So Mother Nature kind of controlled this. We've had the driest, hottest summer we've ever had in my memory. I've been here almost 43, 44 years, and so that's what got it clicking. And so I want to introduce your great assemblywoman from District 7, Tambovi. You have the best assembly person there is in the Matsu Borough, right? Sitting right here. She will take care of you, I promise. She has the heart of hearts. And with her is Senator Dan Mayfield from down in Big Lake area. He's probably looks at this fire carefully because we have 2 fires going in the Matsu Borough at this time. Obviously, our hearts go out to our Caswell friends and neighbors. 51 homes were burned. In the Sakai fire just several years ago, we had 55 homes burned right up the road here. So we've had a tough few years here in the Willow area, Caswell area. So we are very proud of our firefighters. I saw them in action last Saturday. I was at Lucky Shot by 2 p.m. They already had that fire circled and kept it out of the trees, kept it from crowning. We were notified of the Wild Bill Way fire. Tambovi and I went up there thanks to Ken Barkley. He took us through, what time was it, 6 p.m., something like that? Saturday night? Yeah. He got us through. The road was already closed. He got us through just a tremendous amount of smoke. We went down Wild Bill Way. I was feeling pretty darn good. I think Tambovi was too, Saturday night. And but all heck broke loose with that wind on Sunday night and into Monday morning. We know what happened. It made a big run down the Parks Highway, both sides of the highway. And so our hearts go out to the folks that lost their homes. And the Matsu Borough will do everything in our power to help. They were just talking about the debris removal and stuff. They'll get that staged, and we'll make sure that is user-friendly and anything we could do. And we're hoping all these homes were insured, but we'll probably find out about that in the near future too, and get our communities rebuilt. We're very proud of our firefighters, especially the local ones. You know, we built a new station up in Caswell, it's back in on Hidden Hills Road. How valuable was that in this event? And then, of course, we got the Willow fire buildings that we had built over the years, and it's amazing. And to see these incident people here that come in and take over, just look at what they did in 6 days. We're not even 7 days into it. They've got both these fires basically surrounded, and bulldozers and paths cut in, and I just want to thank you folks for everything you've done for us. And Julie Rutherford, I cannot believe these TV stations don't steal you as chief meteorologist. She is good, isn't she? And she's promised us 3 inches of rain. When was that, Monday? But it doesn't look like there's rain in the future. That's seriously what's going to happen. It doesn't look like there's rain in the future, I guess is what we could say. So we got to be careful. There is a fire ban on it. A statewide fire ban, and we mean fire ban. Don't any fire, period. Warming fire, hunting fire, burn barrels, cigarettes. Be careful of your cigarettes, tossing them out. This is a serious thing. So there is also a hunting ban, like in Willow Swamp, big swamp area down through Red Shirt Lake area. So we got all these firefighters. How many firefighters do we have out there in that one right now? On the Deshka.
On Deshka, we have 200 something?
Yeah, so we don't need bullets whizzing by these folks. And so that's why the ban's on. And so we could get another fire real easily. So we've got to be careful. So campfires and things like that are totally out, you know. So I will be flying with the Governor Dunleavy, in the morning. He wants to take a look at the fires. I'm really happy. He decided to sign the state declaration. We had our borough declaration of disaster out, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, wasn't it, Ken? And so they followed up with the state declaration today, which frees up this federal FEMA money and things like that. So we'll get cooking there as far as and get that rolling. And it's gonna take a long time to get this fire cleaned up. You can probably tell it's down in the Duff. They're talking about the first 15 inches is just. So it's down there, so we got to try to get it out of there. They're saying, they told me 2 or 3 inches of rain plus probably snow cover to get this thing out. So that's a ways off, isn't it? last year we didn't get snow until January 1st. So that's so there's going to be a lot of work going on over the next months by these people, and so I'm very proud of them. I'll take a couple. Anybody has any questions? I'll try to answer a couple of them. Monica Goyet's here with the superintendent of schools too. So we'll give away, you know, all our schools up here in the valley up here have been closed for several days now. And are you going to go Monday, or are you going to?
So our hope is we want to have Monday for staff to get back together, so that they really can identify which of their families may have been really impacted by it. So our tentative hope is Tuesday that we'll be back open for school. In areas that we can't stop on the parks to pick up students. Sorry, we will have. I know Cubbies will be a spot, and I can't remember what the spot will be down here on this side, but we'll have additional route stops, and we'll have food and water on the buses so that we know that kids might be on that bus stuck in the pilot car line for a little while. Hopefully they don't have to go to the bathroom. We haven't figured that one out, but. And then and then we're going to go check in with the shelters. It's too far from Menard to be driving kids all the way up to Sioux Valley and Trevor Creek, Kentucky. Now that'd be about a 3-hour ride. So we're going to go assess with those families what they want to do. But I think we'll probably bring Chromebooks, computers in there, get a teacher in there, and just kind of help them try to stay up as much as they can. So, and then from there, we'll work with United Way and Matsu Health Foundation. We have all of our schools asking what they can do to help your community, our community, but they're our friends to the north. So please let us know what we can do, and thank you for your patience. And our goal was to stay out of the way of the first responders last week, so that's why we kept school closed the whole time.
They'll probably yell at me. I just added her to the agenda real quick. But anyway, I just want to thank our firefighters for especially the Matsu Borough ones that got on this thing so quick that first night, and then all of the people that came from a long ways away to jump in here and take care of this and get it surrounded. And tomorrow with that little bit of wind, that's what we'll be watching, and then try to mop this thing up. And this fire here, you know, we didn't have any structural problems, you know, homes or anything like that. It would have to make another 1.5 2-mile run down to Red Shirt Lake before it'd pick up cabins. So we try to defend the east side of that, because if that got a southwest or west wind and started pushing it over into the lake region, that would be what we'd really be concerned about. And of course, there's a high population, a little population there. So it's so thank you for everything, and thank you to our firefighters.
Oh, great. Thank you, Vern Halter. And everybody, we're going to go into a Q&A, and I request that, again, like the last meeting, that we have, first of all, that Stephanie gets the mic to you so that the online audience can hear. And we'll also be monitoring for online questions. So Emery behind the camera here, who looks like she's texting her boyfriend, is actually, her husband is actually reading all the comments. And, either one. And is responding to them as we go throughout the night. So this is a very interactive meeting. In fact, our deaf friend right here has the, I can see the briefing right now on this iPad. And so to that audience, please post your questions, and let's keep it broad for everybody. After the questions and after Alan Lawson gives us a deshka, then if you have an individual, specifically to you question, we are here for you. We'll stay to the last person is done asking questions. So where do you want to start? Okay, right up front. And how about I hope like?
I haven't heard anything about people recreating on lakes. Should they stay off the lakes so that the firefighters can, or the people in the planes and helicopters can scoop down and get water? Or is that a concern for you guys?
So I think that's going to apply to both fires. Are you asking more for the actual Deshko Landing fire?
All of them, yeah.
Okay, well, our operations chief has insight in this, and our aircraft here, we're lucky in Alaska to have a lot of water in this area, right? And so, unlike Ski Lac Lake, when we have a Sterling, you know, what's going on in Sterling, where you have to tell the myriads of canoers and boaters to stay out of the middle so the CL-415s can come right down the middle. We haven't had much discussion about that issue. I'll go ahead and give Karen a chance to address how air operations works.
So when we put up aircraft, whether it's rotor wing or fixed wing, we have an aerial supervision platform. And so that aerial supervisor will take a look at the available waterways and determine which waterways, whether it's rivers or lakes, that the aircraft will be either dipping or scooping out of. So if you happen to see and you're out recreating, I would say, you know, at this time everything's open for your use as long as it's not closed. But if you happen to see a helicopter coming in, it's advisable to move your boats and your recreating vehicles to the sides of the river or lakes and just maintain a safe distance. They're fun to watch, and we encourage that. You just don't want to be out in the middle when they're doing that. Helicopters have generally a pretty good view of what's going on. They're not going to come in if they determine it's unsafe, but you can help us out and get out of the way if you see that happening.
Great, thanks. And to build on that question, the airspace is controlled, and that's called a temporary flight restriction. So over fires that we operate in, we submit to the FAA a request for a TFR, temporary flight restriction, so that pilots leaving Willow a couple days ago had a number of incursions, and so we tried to get the word out to local pilots because that is a FAA violation. A local pilot heading north through our zone of operation does put the pilots at risk, and we have to slow down, and you don't want us to slow down. You want us to get those bucket drops exactly where they need to go, as often as they need to go, and it's always good to get a good rhythm and not have a sudden watch out. Okay, other questions? Oh, from the online audience.
So this question is for Julia. It's what weather pattern trends will increase and or decrease the amount of smoke near the ground in the region? Is there any ideal weather pattern besides rain and wind direction and strength that could bring clean, stable air?
So can you repeat?
Okay, so what weather pattern will increase or decrease smoke and such in our area?
Oh, okay. So in general, if you're looking at right around a fire specifically, in that area, when you have the stable conditions, especially when you have cool, dry, clear nights, you get inversions forming, and then that smoke will concentrate down in that inversion. In the afternoon, when the sun comes out, you'll get more little more unstable conditions. The smoke will tend to lift and mix out, just depending on how much smoke there is. So for a relatively small fire that's not putting out a lot of smoke, you'd expect to see some smoke hanging in there first thing in the morning and then mixing out. With the multiple fires in the area, it gets a little bit more complex because you can have one fire put up a bunch of smoke, and then the wind will carry that smoke up over another area. It'll shade it. So that smoke will hang in kind of more over a deeper layer of the atmosphere, and so that can make the inversions stick in longer and keep the low-level smoke stuck in there more. So the wind directions to think about are, I guess that's pretty situationally dependent. For the Susitna Valley here, if the Swan Lake fire down on the Kenai Peninsula is active and putting up a lot of smoke, a south wind will tend to carry that smoke up over this area. If it's cooler and cloudier down there and the south wind is coming up off the Gulf and bringing cooler air in, that could actually help a little bit in that instance when the fire was less active. Over the two fires, McKinley and Deshka, those are going to see the most local smoke generated just when we're in the really light wind pattern, when the local smoke forms and stays and hangs in over the area. But I would think in most cases at least in the next week or so, that should be more of a transient thing, that the smoke will be bad in the morning and then tend to improve in the afternoon.
Okay, we have a question in the back.
Hi, I want to thank all of you for all the good information and all the firefighters that are spending all their time out there. I know that initially the lines that were put in to the north of the fire did not hold everything, and my question really is concerning the south lines. If the lines that were put into the south have held, and how far up the extensions on those have gone on the east and the west side.
Okay, perfect question for our Operations Chief, Karen Scholl.
So with the the winds that we had last Saturday and last Sunday, pretty much it didn't matter how wide the lines were. The spotting potential there and what we were getting from spots is what pushed the embers across the line and then allowed the fire to continue to move. So that was the issue that we had Saturday, Sunday, when we kind of thought that maybe the crews had it, that it spotted across those lines. Right now, we don't have good control lines on the south. We have people there, we've got some hose in, but we do not have great control lines. We're not calling them control lines. They're just lines where we're trying to work. We're spread really thin right now. So what we have is some people, and we've got some lines, we've got some water, and we've got a lot of air support, and what we're trying to do is to keep the fire damping down. Now with the wind that's coming, the spotting potential is a shorter distance, and with that we have higher humidities, so the fuels are a little less receptive for spots to happen. And with the wind coming over the nighttime instead of during the hot and dry part of the day, although we're still concerned with the spotting potential, we're not expecting it to be nearly as likely as last weekend. Does that answer your question?
Thanks, Aaron. And let's do one more for this fire, and then we'll have Alan Lawson come up and give us a desk briefing, and then we can have more questions after that.
We have one back here. Hi, my name is Carrie Smolden. I'm a substitute teacher here at Willow Elementary, so I'm not official Mat-Su School District staff. But first, I just see a lot of our families that have children at our school, and we are keeping a list of families that are being affected by the fire, whether they're close to it or whether they've lost a residence or cabin. So if you want to stop by and give me your information before you leave, please do that. Also, question for our superintendent. I've been asked by a couple of different parents, is the state going to forgive the last week of school, or what's going to happen with that?
That's a great question. So last year when we had the earthquake, we applied for a waiver under state statute. If there's a natural disaster, you can ask for that. I've spoken with the commissioner. He knows that one is coming. Our school board, I believe, will be hopefully, on the next school board meeting, September 4th, we'll get them to approve that, and then we'll send it down there. So it's not official, but I do believe that they will look at this the same. So for both staff and students, hopefully it won't need to be made up. And really, there's nothing worse than having to experience a trauma, and then at the end of the school year, everybody's out on summer, and you're going a full week longer. We know, that's just insult to injury, and really learning isn't very good at that time. So kids, and many kids and families just wouldn't come. So we're very hopeful, but it will let everybody know when it's official.
Okay, great, thanks. We'll get back in the camera here so that people at home don't just have a screen. Okay, we're back. Thanks for your patience there. And let's go to the desk of fire now. And we'll have a few representatives. Okay, we're going to have an operations update. All right, great, thanks.
Good evening, Bart Kicklighter, Incident Commander Training for Pacific Northwest Team 10. Sure.
Yep, we'll go ahead. Right into the camera.
The map's good, I need, yep.
Good. Okay, good evening. I'm going to give you a quick summary here of our Deshka Landing fire. Everything, for the most part, is looking really good. I'm just kind of going to go around the clock here on you. Division Alpha, our right side of the fire on the north side. Well, on both sides of the north, it's looking really good. Our crews have got a line in, and they've been working about 30 feet in on both sides from what we call H10 down. It's looking pretty cold, but like you've heard tonight, the duff layer is very dry, so there is always potential for more heat out there. So we've still got crews. We have 7 crews on this incident right now. And they will be continuing to patrol the north end of this fire, which is looking the best. Coming down here to the south end of the fire, this is a little thicker terrain in here. Some of are calling it the jungle. Very thick with trees, lots of hazard trees. We are actually going to bring in 2 excavators tomorrow and get a little heavy machinery power to help us build some line down here on the right side of the fire. And then we'll have crews coming in, plumbing this with line with hose lays as well. Working down here at the bottom near Red Shirt Lake, we have our smoke jumpers working to prep these cabins. The west side, they've gotten down to what they're calling the 3-mile mark, which is, I believe, the bulk of the cabins, and they are pretty close on the east side of doing the same thing. So if there were unexpected fire activity to move to the south, this is all looking very good down there. Again, the next steps for us is going to be to start working around to the left side of this southern end of the fire. Our acreage is currently at 1,543 acres, and there's been no change in the last couple of days. There was a reduction due to better mapping, but no fire growth in the last couple of days. And I wanted to remind you that we're having another meeting Sunday at 3 o'clock here.
Okay, Bart, well done. And Bart's the Incident Commander trainee, and so in this program at Green Pants Nation, sometimes our trainees are the presenters, and our Incident Commanders get to evaluate and see how they did, and I think they did a great job. Okay, let's go back into Q&A, broad stroke questions, and then we'll do the individual breakouts. Who has a question? Yes, sir. Wait for the microphone, please.
I had a follow-up to the southern end of the McKinley. Since you say you didn't have lines well established, because you're spread thin, so what resources do you need to get those lines established, and when do you anticipate getting those resources?
Great question for Karen Scholl.
So on the southern end down here, we do have dozer line in, and we got an additional crew in to help lay hose. And I just got an update that we did get additional hose, and that's what we've been waiting on. We're competing with other fires in the area, Swan Lake, Deshka, and the 2 other fires that are on the Kenai Peninsula. And all of that requires just a lot of hose, a lot of pumps, and then people to put it out, to lay it out. So, so we do have dozer line here, but again, the potential is for the spotting. So a dozer line is great for just ground fire. It could run into that and more or less stop it, but it could creep through there. So we do have to have hose put out and the resources to do that. So we're getting there, and things are looking better now that we just got some hose in.
Okay, another question? Yes, sir. Just 1 second for the mic. And thanks to Rachel and Colleen. This is a lot of work signing for everybody, and I know some of us speak quickly. So thank you.
Well, I don't think it's too soon to start talking about another way to get out of the Caswell Lake, Hidden Hills area. I think we need to get that conversation going, and we need a committee, and we need to quit loitering around and waiting on this. Nobody's going to do it unless we all get together and do it.
I'll pass on to Mayor Holter.
So I mentioned that last night at last night's meeting, that's going to be a big priority for the borough, is to get a southern access, probably where we at here. See the Cashwitna River coming down, get a straight line access in, and cross, put a bridge across Cashwitna River and going straight north up into Hidden Hills. So, you know, there's about 500 homes at one time who were out of electricity out in Hidden Hills country in those subdivisions, and this would be a huge project. So some of them are Bovee, we were working at it. We want to do more than just talk about it. We want to get it mapped out. We want to get the route mapped out. We want to get it funded. And we want to get it built as soon as practical, because that's you can see that one way. This must be Hidden Hills right here, that straight line up there. And so I'm talking about down here, up into. So there's 2 ways in, 2 ways out. We're going to work on it. You know, you were on the road board up there. You know, it's just we'll have the road service areas work on it, both Willow and probably Caswell. Okay, so we'll get it funded.
And there's a couple of guys that live across the river. They've already got the road down to the highway.
I know. I'm very familiar with that country. So.
Good question, sir. Thank you. Any more questions? Okay, so thank you all for coming. This is the beginning of a journey of recovery, and we have a lot more ahead of us, so let's get through tomorrow. Public meeting in Talkeetna tomorrow for the McKinley fire, and then back here on Sunday for the Deshka fire, and then we'll see how Monday looks for all the discussions we had about reentry and processes, so it's just going to keep on going. So stay with us, stay online at AK Fire Info, keep giving us your questions and calls, and we appreciate the support.
Good job, thank you.
Okay, is that still on? Okay, everybody, thanks for joining us. And Emery, do we have any questions just for the crowd here? Online audience is good?
Online audience is good.
Okay, so at this point in the meeting, whenever we do the breakouts, then all around the room, people go to their subject matter expert and they start asking individual questions. We don't just say we're going to do that. I'm talking about the breakouts, right? So the process of these community meetings, when we say that there's breakouts, often that's when the live feed stops. But we wanted to be a little more transparent tonight and show you that all around the room right now, out of the screen, you can hear the conversation picking up, you can hear the one-on-ones, and that is where, if you had posted your questions here, we could just scroll back through and answer them. So we do not want to ever leave you with a question. We want you to get your answers. So please use us for that. That's what we're here for, and we're here to serve you. And how about a round of applause for, right? Nice. For Rachel and Colleen in the signing.
That's how you do it. Fantastic. For the team, for requesting interpreters.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and then our drones. You're welcome. Thank you.
Drone, that's how you say.
Drone. Here's what the drone looks like. So we'll have lots of drones working out there. We're going to put the drone footage from tonight up on YouTube, and we'll keep the transparency campaign going. We'll be putting up actually a lot more what we call B-roll or fireline videos of just people working and doing the work, and aerial footage so that you can get a better idea of what's going on out there. That's one of the products we like to do once we're caught up with serving the evacuees daily. So we do have information officers that have been going to Talkeetna, to the Upper Susitna Evacuation Center, and also down to Menard, the evacuation center, every day in the morning for several hours, in the evening for several hours, and that's still our priority, is to make sure that people who are displaced and impacted and who are uncomfortable and sad and all of the emotions that comes along with being a wildfire survivor have the support from the team, have the support from the Red Cross, have the community that they've formed together, and we're of course deeply saddened by the losses, but we also know from speaking with the people who have been evacuated that there are also a lot of wins and saves. The firefighters were able to sometimes watch a really heartbreaking maybe barn or shed or something burn down, but then also save the house or vice versa. And I have seen personally footage from the first night when it blew up, or the second night on Sunday, where firefighters kept their poise, made sure that they were safe, and then went into a burning property and saved another structure on it. And so as much as we're heartbroken for those who've lost, we're also very proud of the firefighting effort and that they did it safely and didn't get themselves hurt or killed. No structure is worth the life of a firefighter or you, the public. So be safe out there. We're also letting folks know that there are what are called ash pits. Ash pits are where the ground is burned and where there's a surface layer of ash, and when you step into it, it might turn into a 1 to 2 to 3 foot pit, and that can burn your leg, and that can burn up to your knee or thigh. We actually had an injury on our fire in a similar fashion yesterday, and then on the Swan Lake fire, there's been an injury in the same manner. So stepping into ash pits is very common after there's been widespread fire burning the ground, and that's why we wear protective equipment, Vibram soles, high boots, pants that have Velcro that can really clamp down, and unburnable pants. And that way, when we step into an ash pit, we can extract quickly and not have the coals go up and burn our legs, or if they burn them, it's lighter and hopefully not as severe. So for you who are sheltering in place, or for you who eventually re-enter, this will be one of the biggest challenges because of the drought, the stepping in the ash pits and potentially burning yourself very seriously, especially if you're in slippers or tennis shoes. You could really get yourself into a tough situation. So thanks for joining us. Any more questions, Emery? Okay, so again, a round of applause for our interpreters and a big shout out to our deaf audience. We apologize for not being able to always meet your needs, but we're certainly thinking about you, and we try to get the closed captioning up on the YouTube for you. So thanks for joining us.